Good day, everyone. I am Ola Fasheku, evangelist, Demystify Sin Ministry, and author of Demystify Sin titles. We will find it helpful to be aware of the enemy, which is the darkness, with character of evil and wickedness, and that must gone for us at some point. We who are not part of it and have no intentions to submit to its authority. Evil and wickedness, as the darkness, thrives for not being exposed. We expose the darkness. This suite, as a set of videos, lays out the involvement of the Nigerian police force authorities in effectively setting up innocent persons as targets of insanity rituals. The Nigerian police force authorities acting in collaboration with favored parties against innocent targets. In this case, the Nigerian police force authorities used a petition addressed to it, an arm of insanity rituals, an insanity coded script as an instrument of liquidation that had the petition falsely alleging insanity in hope of its realization, backed up by the insanity rituals. This suite of videos lays out metaphysical activities of police officers on assignment, acting as catalysts to cap the insanity rituals, whilst leveraging the petition as instruments on platform of arrest and interrogation. To say the least, sort of involvement of the Nigerian police force authorities against innocent and law-abiding persons is a dangerous proposition that is worth some attention. This video addresses the crux of the allegations in the petition and examines the character and long antecedents and objects of the key witness and other witness. Concerning allegations of my previous admission to psychiatric hospital as basis of allegations of insanity against me, of long-term insanity and current derangement, as was why I had driven away my wife and 2 children. Obviously, the source of these allegations was no other person than my mother. Anytime I refer to my mother, my supposed mother, please take it in inverted commas. Overwhelming evidence as records abound, as affidavits sworn to by various persons, statements on oath to court, transcripts of court proceedings, judgment of court, officially receipted letters, and more back up the following facts. On January 4, 2011, I was set up for abduction by my mother. Adebola Olufumlayo Fasheku ni Adeyeye, apprehended, was immediately drugged unconscious, and taken to the accident and emergency unit of the Federal Psychiatric Hospital, Yaba. Whilst fully in my right mind and unconscious for being drugged, I was diagnosed insane by psychopath psychiatrists of the Federal Psychiatric Hospital, Yaba, who admitted me into their custody as a mental patient for incarceration in their lunatic asylum and coercively subjected to treatment as heavy dosage of antipsychotic drugs and injections, and to psychological manipulation, subjects to render me null and void and turn me to a vegetable mentally and reprogram me mentally. The treatment inflicted on me by the psychopath psychiatrist of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, and the circumstances under which I was held constituted heinous crimes, heinous torture. I went through hell. The psychopath psychiatrists were acting their part as accustomed practice in that institution, with its Oshoromoga, hijacked establishments, and network of psychopath psychiatrists. Psychopath psychiatrists involved are Dr. Oluwayemi Cecilia Ogun, who was the acting medical director and consultant psychiatrist of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba. Others include Dr. Abidemi Olubumi Bello. She was a senior registrar. Then there was Dr. Oloruniyo Omidiji, who was a private practice, but who was an ex-staff. Dr. Abidemi Olubumi Bello is the psychiatrist posted to call duty at the Accident and Emergency Unit of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, to receive me from my abductors, who are my supposed mother and supposed spouse at the time. Her name is Bokelola Ajose Adogu, with whom at the time I had terminated relationship and who had left my house. She was staying in her sister's place. Her sister's place, she wasn't homeless, her sister's place was down the road. Left my house only to return to take part in my abduction, following which she got imposed on me by my incarcerators, the psychopath psychiatrist. Dr. Bidemi Olubumi Bello was the psychiatrist senior registrar who admitted me on her diagnosis of provisional paranoid schizophrenia whilst I was unconscious. She sent me ahead of her to her lunatic asylum ward that was her regular station at the Oshodi Annex of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba. I regained consciousness the next day, a captive in a coercive environment. I was taken by force. I was wounded, seriously wounded, in the process of my abduction and drugging. In a coercive environment, I was immediately bombarded with injections and placed on heavy dosage of antipsychotics. Overwhelming evidence of having been in my right mind at the time and beyond, and even throughout my incarceration, abounds. Without the phone or means, I sent for people, including my lawyer, all of whom came immediately and met me in my right mind. My lawyer had a meeting with my incarcerators, and they were not going to release me. No matter what happened, they were not going to release me. They told him that it was a family matter, indirectly that I should stay out of the matter. They placed untenable conditions, which they knew was their standard practice, which they knew he could not accept. My lawyer kept on telling me that he knew them very well. Apparently he knew that the objects of my psychiatric incarceration was to drive me insane. I did not know. Before he had no choice but to let the matter be, he wrote the medical director, in which capacity Dr. Oluwayemi Cecilia Ogun was acting. He wrote a letter dated 14 January 2011. That letter is critical evidence, remains critical evidence. In my distress, being held in the most atrocious conditions, under bombardment by heavy dosage of antipsychotics, injections, and drugs. I also wrote a letter to the same medical director that is officially receipted right from inside incarceration. That letter is also physical evidence of my being in my right mind and having expressly stated my objections to my unlawful incarceration and treatment. In response to my letter and to the letter of my lawyer and the intervention of my lawyer, I was heavily victimized and punitively too. Punitively. Dr. Bidemi Olubunmi Bello had come back to her ward from call duty at the accident and emergency unit where she was posted, where she received me from my abductors. She was part of the meeting with my lawyer. She was present. She had admitted me while I was unconscious on provisional diagnosis, on diagnosis of insanity, of provisional paranoid schizophrenia. She had now come back, and within a week of my letter, she rolled out her permanent diagnosis. I quote from paragraph 13 of her sworn affidavit, that after clinical assessment of the petitioner, Mr. Olatunde Fasheku, he met the diagnosis of a major psychiatric disorder based on the International Classification of Disease, 10th edition, World Health Organization, 1992, section F20, as stated as follows. She now lists the diagnosis under heading: persecutory delusion, fixed and systematized; bizarre delusion; thought insertion; auditory hallucination; declining in functioning. All this for which there is no cure. It's the usual practice. This is usual practice. Then there came waves of insanity attacks in my vulnerable mental state of having been drugged. God shielded me from all the attacks. Just shielded me. I remained in my right mind throughout my ordeal, my incarceration. Whilst all kinds of fabrications were being recorded in the file from all kinds of sources that included nurses and the psychologists to suit the objects of my incarceration. There's a big network. It runs across the whole institution. It's like a mafia. So it was a synergy of eyes. There were staff who knew what was going on from the moment I was brought in. Those watching all knew why I was there. But why I was there was not quite happening as it usually would happen. To be driven insane because, to fit the diagnosis and the prognosis. I was in their custody in psychiatric incarceration at the instance of my supposed family, who all had one thing in common. They were all murderers and accessories to the murder of my dad. My dad's death in 2008, December 22nd, apparently everybody had known since then that it was poison, was by poison. I didn't know that. I only found that out in November 2022. Once they confirmed that it was poison and everybody had known it, but nobody told me, it was clear because I was the one who was around and who was there and thereabouts. But I never imagined they were capable of such barbarity, such as murderers. Somehow, God got the psychopath psychiatrist to release me. After about 3.5 months, on April 15th, 2011. That was not supposed to be the end. It's just a temporary release, and there was a purpose for it. There was standard practice on how they have to revolve patients in the hospital so that the amount of patients that are there permanently is reduced to a minimum. So you go through a process. Insanity, they had expected, and they are diagnosed and given prognosis of that didn't show up. We were waiting for it to strike. They thought it had made a good hit, but towards the end. So the psychopath psychiatrist preferred that I be taken away to go insane at home, then if necessary brought back, so that whatever they were doing would not be directly linked. The impression was that I was already fully incapacitated. I was already broken because I was a bit stubborn when I got there. It destroyed me. I was at their mercy and I had fallen in line. The psychopath psychiatrist confirmed that my behavior had changed and was all based on their work. After I was released, God told me exactly what to do. After all, I had done tedious work around 1994 for almost a year as a deliverance minister, and I remained one. Effectively, I remained. One morning, I just stood in front of the mirror and I cast out every spirit of insanity trying to disturb me. In my verse, I cast them out, and out they went. And quickly, within 5 minutes, they were all gone. My mother was snookered when she was reported to her family relations, who were shocked but not surprised. They know her well. They know her very well. Yeah. She's a legend and poster of evil witchcraft. They all said the same thing, that after what had happened to my elder brother, the hint of this should never occur. Once she knew that her family relations and others knew, I could not be sent back. My supposed mother is Oshoro Mogashoro. It's the most evil and wicked witchcraft cult. It's a powerful force in this society. The objects of my psychiatric incarceration and treatment at the instance of my supposed mother was to render me incapable of defense against evil metaphysical and witchcraft attack, to drive me insane. As the desperate, long-term, desperate goals of the mothers Oshoromoga and Iya Oshoromoga. They are the rulers of the witchcraft cult. The patron and main facilitator of the scheme that had me admitted whilst I was in my right mind and incarcerated and inflicted with treatment by psychopath psychiatrists of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, is the son of Oshoromoga, Dr. Daniel K. Olukoya, the General Overseer of Mountain of Fire and Miracles Ministry, MFM. His proxy, Adega, council member of his church, was the critical ground link that set up my abduction and admission into that psychiatric hospital. My mother had recruited my spouse at the time, Mopelola Ajose Adegu, to her scheme. Dispatched by Dr. Daniel K. Olukoya, Adega came in to set me up under the guise of marriage counseling. The marriage counselor who was sent and interested in helping to resolve contentious issues in the marriage or in the matrimony. Those issues were deliberately contrived by my supposed spouse to metaphysically destabilize me and to get our own objects, she had her own agenda, and to get objects of the scheme for which she was recruited. She's not smart. My mother just simply used her. My mother was asked to recruit her by the Oshoromoga rulers, that she should go and recruit her, and she obliged. The psychopath psychiatrists, they have been doing this a long time. They know that my supposed mother, on whose behalf they were executing the scheme, did not have legal authority or any legal relationship with me as an adult, but that my supposed spouse had a legal relationship, which is what they exploit with spouses, especially female spouses. So the Oshoromoga had asked my mom to recruit the girl. My mom hated her. My mom was always going to drive her off. after she had used her. My mom is very crafty. So she used her legal relationship with me as cover to execute my mother's scheme. The psychopath psychiatrist had placed her in charge of me, my house. She was fully in charge. She was, you can see that is why she came, to assert herself an authority over me metaphysically. She was using a new position over me and is in charge of me and my house, as installed by the psychopath psychiatrist who had restored her into the relationship, despite that it was made clear to them from the beginning that I was not interested in any relationship with her. But they imposed her on me and made it a condition for my release. They put her in charge. She was the one writing the reports, yes, of my trials when they are going for weekend trial. She's the one to write the reports of my good behavior. They put her in charge. I was subjected to her by the psychopath psychiatrist of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, as to what they do in that institution. I practically was subjected to her to be able to get released. They were using her as a gauge, my subjection to her as a gauge to measure my improvement to their treatment, my response to their treatment. So I had to act a part. It's the usual practice. This is usual practice. My supposed spouse at the time, he was making all kinds of accusations of abuse, false accusations, and my supposed mother had someone come to stay in the house. My mother had her own agenda for that. My supposed spouse at the time, whom the psychopath psychiatrist had subjected me under and appointed to supervise me to make sure I continued to take my drugs that kept me incapacitated, was losing her mind. I was not going insane as they had all hoped. I was not being sent back to the psychiatric hospital. I was practically behaving like some crazed animal. Her intoxication led to this Oshiwalare incident that the court noted. There was this day she was beating my son. She was beating him temperamentally. And I told her, will you stop that? So that was the first time because I'd been very quiet. She said, She looked at me, Oshiwalare, okay. That, it's still in your body, after everything, you're still flexing with me, right? Oh, I see, don't worry. Just don't worry, I am the one who sent you there, and I can send you back anytime I like. I said, oh, really? I said, okay. But she eventually calmed down when she was served with court summons on the divorce petition. I filed for divorce with the causes, matrimonial causes, being her part in my ordeal as torture and attempted liquidation by or through psychiatric means. The matter, suit number HD/15/12, the court made pronouncements in its judgment that included an unequivocal declaration of my mental competence and good conduct. It found me credible. It made an unequivocal declaration of my ordeal being inhuman and cruel, which by extension refers to all those involved. It's the usual practice. This is usual practice. I profiled, analyzed all the operations in my petition to the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria. I made a report of professional misconduct 2013 to the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, which initially moved to address the matter. Issuing queries, which two of the doctors, Dr. Oluwayemi Cecilia Ogun and Dr. Olorunniyo O. Omidichi, practically refused to answer the queries. What they issued as responses amounted to non-responses. They didn't give any response. As expected and predicted well ahead in my petition, I knew what would happen. The Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria dramatically changed course. The Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria sorted stalling at one point. When a suit was filed against it, you filed a suit that, why are you stalling? Move ahead. It immediately moved to absolve all the doctors, to kill the matter. In one paragraph, in a one-page letter, it claimed it found no prima facie evidence or case against any of the doctors. The suit was then sabotaged deliberately by my lawyer, Mr. Olukunle Bamidele, in conduct of professional dealing that apparently is not uncommon. The Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, as the governing authority over the practice of medicine and as registrar and regulator of the conduct of practitioners, consequently became accessory to those crimes and placed on itself full responsibility for those crimes. Thank you very much for watching. Watch and pray is a commandment. Thank you very much for your support as prayers and other means. God provides for us and feeds us in the work of the ministry we do through your kind generosity. God bless you.